Did Paul give a monologue sermon in the church in Acts chapter 20 verse 7? In Acts chapter 20 verse 7, we read that on the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul, who was leaving the next day, spoke to them and continued his message until midnight. That must have been quite a long-winded sermon. A young man even fell asleep and tumbled out of the window. But does this passage really indicate that Paul gave a sermon to the church on the first day of the week? Unfortunately, the translation of this passage may reflect some institutional bias. The phrase "spoke to them" comes from the Greek word dialogomai, from which we get the English word dialogue. Clearly, this doesn't describe a monologue sermon. In fact, dialogomai means to engage in heated discussion or debate. So rather than giving a formal sermon, Paul was likely having a lively discussion, perhaps addressing doctrinal questions that the church needed to clarify on before he departed. Given that Paul was leaving the next day, it's more plausible that the interaction involved back and forth discussions rather than a long-winded lecture. However, did Paul not teach in 2 Timothy 2 verse 23 about avoiding foolish and ignorant disputes that causes strife? Yes, he did. Paul continues in verse 24 to verse 26, stating that a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient, and in humility correcting those who are in opposition. The goal is that God might grant them repentance, allowing them to come to the knowledge of the truth and escape the snares of the devil, who has taken them captive to do his will. There are times when discussions are necessary to gain clarity on important doctrinal issues, especially when they affect how the church grows in a relationship with God through the gospel of Christ. However, this should not be confused with people who simply enjoy quarreling about topics that generate strife without producing any spiritual growth for those who are involved or for the listeners. In any case, a monologue sermon does not necessarily avoid disputes. It often forces disagreements to fester beneath the surface. In contrast, healthy discussions conducted in a spirit of gentleness can help clarify misunderstanding and promote growth. Like and subscribe for more 2-minute biblical rebuttals.